Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Kyra, or as I'm known on the internet, Kyra Universe. Today, I will be revisiting a painting that I previously abandoned with the hopes of completing it. Originally, I started this painting with the intent of doing a self-portrait annually. However, I came to have a lot of mixed feelings about the painting and came to the conclusion that my skills at the time were not sufficient enough to accurately depict my likeness. This resulted in me being greatly dissatisfied with the outcome, and thus abandoning both the painting and the idea. My first portrait was done as a school assignment, where I was taught to use the Grizel painting technique, which only uses shades of grays and browns, creating a monochromatic color scheme. The second step of this painting technique is to add layers of translucent colored glazes to complete the painting. My second attempt at a self-portrait was done because I did not like the outcome of the assignment, mainly because it lacked tonal values and form. So this was an effort to address and improve on both. In my third attempt, from the beginning, I got the tones wrong, and in trying to fix it, I overworked the painting, and as a result, the colors became muddied. Over the course of the next 3 years, I would work on improving in many different areas. Becoming an airbrush apprentice allowed me to expand on specific elements within art. For example, line, color, shape, contrast, and proportion, as it was essential for the work we produced. From my independent seascape studies, I was able to experiment and create my own painting style. This resulted in knowing when and where to use appropriate brushes, with the intent of creating a more harmonious piece. I recently completed a portrait of my original character, Lonely Clunk, and in doing so, I was inspired and motivated by the results to try doing self-portraits again. Given it some more thought, I probably could have saved the last portrait if I kept working on it, but I decided it was best to just start over. Using titanium white, I covered my canvas and used burnt umber as my underpainting. Then it was time to take a new reference photo. I had 3 options and this one was the winner, so I made a quick sketch of it onto the canvas. Honestly, from the start, I was really hesitating and overthinking about starting the painting. One of the main reasons was because I have failed before. Another big reason for why I was overthinking was because I made a lot of arbitrary rules to follow, and that made it severely restrictive. But after thinking about it, I realized I could just do what I want and have fun. So to better understand the tonal values, I edited the photo, turning it to black and white. After editing, my approach was to keep it loose just to get something down on the canvas. The easiest way to accomplish this was to use one of my bigger brushes, taking a more impressionist style instead of blending everything from the jump. Something seemed a bit off, so I stopped for the day to focus my effort on figuring out what the problem was and how to fix it. To me, painting is like problem solving, so there's a lot of thought that goes into my brush strokes. Most of the time, how I achieve a desired outcome is based off of my working. It's similar to math and long division. After further investigation, the reason why my painting looked so off was because the eyes were too low. Generally speaking, to save time and effort, I like to do my working on my phone. Using a drawing app, I'm able to check my proportions, tones, and values. However, I was experimenting, so my approach was a bit different. Working on this painting, my plan was to keep things relatively simple. To do so, I used 4 tones of gray to get a desired outcome. Even when I had corrections to make, this method made things so much easier. Alternating between 2 brushes, one to apply the paint and the dry brush for blending. I was starting to see my work paying off. I was getting into a rhythm, but something still wasn't right. The eyes. The most important features on the face, and it seemed to be so hard for me. Nevertheless, I continued refining the features on the face, so I can later pay more attention to the eyes, because as they say, the eyes are the windows to the soul. For a long time, the painting process was reaching a point where the painting just did not look like me. The proportions were off, and all I knew was it had something to do with the eyes. After days of working on this portrait, I got frustrated and felt like giving up. So I did. I deleted all my previous videos I recorded on the painting and did not make art for 2 months straight. Honestly, I felt like a failure and lost the courage and motivation to continue. But after my rage quit, I realized I was trying to rush the process and trying to be a perfectionist. I created an arbitrary deadline and was unable to reach my goal. Along the way, I forgot the purpose of working on the portrait, and again, I was simply wasting my time and my resources. It might sound a bit cheesy, but after reflecting on how I handled the ugly phase of the painting is how I sometimes deal with problems in my life. When things aren't going ideal, I crumble from frustration, worry about making mistakes, feel like giving up, and have a hard time accepting things as they are. Beating myself up and being negative never helps. The point is to do my best, and if I'm not satisfied, I will use what I learned to do better next time, which is exactly what I did. After my 2-month hiatus, I switched materials and did some watercolor studies, which resulted in me getting my groove back. I decided to continue, so I picked up my brush and prepared to redo the eyes. In starting over, I asked my husband, who's also an artist, to help me with the critique. It tends to help me when I'm stuck in my process, and I'm always able to get a different perspective. Using my pencil, I measured the distance from my nose and mouth to figure out where to position the eyes. I moved on to smaller brushes to get the features to a similar level of completion. When I reached a desirable outcome, it was time to paint the eyebrows. My eyebrows are light, so I knew if they started to look thick, I would automatically have to start over. I mapped out the brows and began to apply details. Initially, it did not work out how I intended, so I had to start again. My second attempt was better, but they were too straight in comparison to my actual eyebrows. In trying to fix them, I ended up making things significantly worse. At this point, I decided to leave the eyebrows for last until I came up with a more concrete solution. So the next day, I continued defining the hair, and it turned out to be a pretty enjoyable part of the painting. I previously learned how to paint braids from my portrait 4 years ago, so I used that knowledge and freestyled with my tones and layers. Though not as much, the eyebrows were bothering me, so I decided to cover them up in preparation for completion, still leaving minor visibility to act as a guide for when that time came. After that, I continued working on my locks. Upon completion, it was time for the inevitable, the eyebrows. Starting with a basic shape, I filled it with a mid-tone, then covered it with a slightly darker and watery color to define the darker spots in the brow, and to contrast, a lighter gray in the more sparse areas of the brow. The painting was coming together nicely, I still thought it looked a bit weird, but not terrible. And after 2 hours of meticulous work, I was finally finished. Although I was having flashbacks from the first time I started over this painting, I'm glad I decided to restore the videos and complete the painting in the end. In my opinion, I only fail when I give up, so my options were to revisit it on a later date, start over, or work on another project. But giving up is not something that I'm willing to accept. I definitely need more portrait practice, so I will be doing more studies in the future. Be that as it may, in comparison to my self-portraits of the past, I can see improvements in tonal values and form. Additionally, I believe I have gotten better at depicting my likeness, and overall, I am satisfied with the outcome. Comment and an emoji if you made it this far into the video. Leave a like and subscribe, as it helps me to reach a wider audience. That's it for today's video. Thanks to all of those who support the channel. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next video. Bye bye.